Hey guys, thanks a lot for sending in Kenneth's videos. I'm glad you found me because I think I'm going to possibly shed some light on some things maybe you'd never heard of before. So I'm hoping that you learn lots from this session. Um, First things first, um, let's just look at setup. Um, I love your setup here. I look to have your armpits, back your armpits over the balls of your feet. I mean, that's perfectly on point there. Ball roughly off your um, left ear, again, right on. So right away, setting up to the ball, love it. Grip, yeah, you'd mentioned about possibility of weakening the grip. It is strong. There's a lot of kids, obviously, that have strong grips. Um, Not the end of the world. A lot of times they kind of weaken it as they go. Strong grips obviously help us get a little more power turning the ball over, but that might not be right for him, and we'll get into that shortly here. Looking at takeaway. Um, Good takeaway. Obviously, notice a little bit of a stand up with the knees straightening, but I don't mind that because, getting a little bit of straightening in that trail leg, his right leg, just allows him to get more hip turn, which is great. At the top, he's got roughly around 100 degrees of shoulder turn. His hips have rotated. Um, Beautiful. I know he had mentioned about hands high at the top. Um, I'll get into that a little bit more in a little bit, but that is absolutely not a junior swing because we'll look at Dustin Johnson in particular, and he does not have a junior swing. So I would definitely not be looking at changing that for Kenneth here. One of the main reasons why I would not change that for Kenneth, people who have hands high at the top, like DJ or Justin Thomas, they're able to find a way to shallow the club so it's not steep coming down. So some players who have high hands and they go and rotate and the club comes way over the top and they get steep. Well, Kenneth does not do that, right? This club is perfectly on plane. We're looking at about 90 degrees to our back line is where we would love to have the shaft at left arm parallel, where she's at right there on the right image. So he's in a perfect spot. So he's getting the club shallow, right on plane. So there's zero reason why you would ever want to change his hand position at the top. The other thing is this bowing of the wrist that we're talking about. This move that he has from here down to here is some of the best you're going to see. And if you can only take one piece from this whole lesson, it would be me saying, please do not change that because that is something that even professional golfers have a very difficult time learning. He's got it at 12 years old. That is amazing. So the bowing of that wrist is incredible, and that should never be changed. If there are things going wrong with the swing, or maybe the face is too close and stuff, let's address other areas to fix that, but definitely not touching that. Here's another checkpoint that we look at for seeing club face, if it's square or not. We want it to be roughly around the same line, your club face, same angle as your spine. So if I put this red line about on the face, we can tell that the club face is a little bit more closed. That to be matching this spine angle, right, would be something like this, right? So this is um, roughly where we'd want that club face to be, but his is a little bit more like this, right? So the face is shut. Again, um, there are other things that influence that, like grip. He does bow his wrist, as I said, that we're not going to change. So if it is closed here, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world, right? We would just need to make sure that coming through impact. So this is exactly like DJ. He's got a strong grip. He's got bowed wrists. The face is closed, but differences between Kenneth and Dustin Johnson is at this stage, DJ's hands are going to be over um, over in this area, right? So they're probably 4 inches ahead of where Kenneth's hands are right now. So in doing that, having a strong grip, you have to kind of hold it off, right? DJ also does that with a lot more body rotation. Now, I know you had talked about getting more body rotation in Kenneth, and yes, I agree that is going to be necessary to match up with his club face. But I don't think that you guys have maybe learned the reason on why he struggles with body rotation, and I'm going to get into that here now. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the legwork here in the downswing that I think are going to be huge for Kenneth going forward. As we'll see, I drew a few lines here on the left-hand image. One is just out front of his left hip, just so we can see the movement. And then the other the other two are around his knee. One is right on the inside of his knee, and one is just slightly outside so that we can see if it moves. What I want you to kind of take a look at here is transition. Is what's happening is his hip. You can see his hip going towards the target, but that knee just stays back, okay? And so what that's doing, that knee kind of staying back there like that, is kind of restricting his hip turn, okay? It's more of just kind of like a little bit of a slide motion. It's not until he starts turning this knee that he's able to really start getting some good rotation in those hips, okay? But as we saw here, there is quite a split second where that doesn't happen, right? The knee almost looks like it goes backwards, where it doesn't actually go backwards, right? If I move those lines, it doesn't go backwards. It's just that those hips are moving towards the target, and the knee's not moving. So, and his right knee is actually coming towards the target. So that just because that left knee is kind of staying still there for that split second, it almost looks like it's moving backwards. So, like I said, what it really means is that initial transition phase, he's losing a bit of hip rotation, as opposed to what I'll try to demonstrate and get him to properly do is get that knee to start turning more towards the target as it's flexing down. All right, now moving in, just looking at the lower body in particular here, I wanted a little bit more of a close-up. So here's something interesting that I'm not sure that has been looked at before, but we can see that he flexes his legs so that he squats, right? He gets a little bit of a squat, not a huge amount. I could show you players that really use their legs a lot more than this, and we're going to try to get that for Kenneth. But the big thing is how early in his swing his left knee and his left leg straighten. So if we watch the right image, his left leg is perfectly extended, is fully extended, even here. So at this stage, his leg is fully extended. That means that now his full power has already gone through that leg. He's jumped up, he's airborne, well, slightly, right? And we'll watch that foot. You can watch that left foot on the left-hand image. His left foot starts, you can even see the sock going downwards. It's starting to go down as he's making impact. Okay, so he's now jumping using full power right about here, which is too early. Okay, he's putting full force through that left leg, which is too early in the swing here. That causes him to jump too early, and because of that, he's already on the way down to the ground as he makes impact with the ball. You're going to watch someone like Rory, who I'll bring up here, and Rory is still going up at this stage. He's still going up, right? Whereas Kenneth is already coming back down to the ground. That means two things that are going to happen. One, he's already given up all his power, right? All his power is pushed and it's there. That's where he's used all his power from the ground. And obviously that's not where the golf ball is, so that's not a good thing. Second, If you imagine, if you just jumped a little hop and you're on your way down right now, you try rotating your hips, right? Think about that for a second. You're jumping, you're on your way down, and you think, rotate my hips. How you just think to yourself, how's that going to happen? It's not, right? It's not going to happen. We need to get him to squat deeper. We need to get him to go more into the ground so that he can have a longer time to start coming back up, right? So I'd be looking at him to go down into the ground. Now we can start pushing up. And this is the stage where he's already fully extended right here, right? I'd want him now to be really pushing up into the ground, not already airborne, but really pushing up into the ground. And when you're pushing up into the ground, as you can see him doing, look at his hips rotating, right? They rotate as we push our left leg up, right? But he's fully extended. So watch that right hand image. He's fully extended here. Hips are done. Hips are done. Hips are done. He comes back down to the ground. Now they can start rotating again, right? It's all about that ground that a lot of players and a lot of coaches don't know a lot about. And he does an amazing job, but it's just all done way too early. And I believe he could use the ground better by going deeper into it, squatting more. And then as he's pressing up, we can get some more hip rotation out of it, right? Power and a better rotation. Because like I said, with DJ, right, he's got strong grip, he's got bowed wrist, but he's got his hands more ahead and he's got a better body rotation. But that's because he used the ground better than Kenneth, right? And was able to use the ground to help him rotate better. Okay, so um, so because of that, like I said, his hips have stopped, but obviously his arms aren't going to stop. Right, they're still going, and so that's why we look at these images where it looks like he's kind of flipping right now. Well, that's just because those hips are stopped rotating for so long, and it just looks like a flip there, right? But if I look at coming through impact on the right hand side, and I look at his club face right here, his club face isn't flipped. It's fine. Now he does on the left hand image, right? He does add loft, right? Like I said, his hands aren't ahead of it enough for his strong grip and bowed wrist. His hands just aren't ahead of it enough, but that's because he's just too young. He doesn't have enough power. So people who don't have enough power, they got to add loft somehow, right? And so he does that by kind of having a little bit of a cast flip, right? It just kind of under flipping is what I call it, by adding loft, right? It's not that he's flipping the face over to close it. It's that coming through, you flip it under to have a vertical shaft right here, as opposed to your hands being ahead of the ball. All right. Now, I just wanted to address a couple things that you had said in the messages. So, wants to weaken the right grip to get rid of the bow. Well, weakening the right grip doesn't do anything to the wrist bowing. And so I'm not sure if that's what you were meaning, but that bowing action, first of all, don't change it. As I said, I would prefer you changing instructors before you went and changed that action. No offense to whoever instructor is, but that's too good to be changed. Now, his grip can be changed, and I think that is a thing that you would want we would want to do right away, is to weaken that a bit, but that has nothing to do with the bowing action that he has here. We would weaken it a little bit so that at this stage on the right, his club face isn't as closed as it is, right? I still want that exact same wrist angle, the bowing there, but with a little weaker grip, we're looking at having that club face just a little less closed, right? That's all. And then it said working on getting more open at impact, trying to exit to the left, and said he's having trouble with this concept and continue to pull his head back at impact. Well, first, yes, as I said, he will have a very difficult time with that concept because he just physically can't do it, because he hasn't been taught how to use the ground properly, or when to use the ground properly, so that now he's coming down from a jump right now, um, and people are telling him to rotate his body. It's like, I just can't do it, right? So that is solved with better ground mechanics. And his head pulling back, again, that's not the end of the world. His head coming back is a 12-year-old kid, um, who is trying to hit the ball up into the air, right? Now, I prefer people who heads fall back. I really want to make sure that they shove their hands forward, making sure they get their hands ahead. Because as we move our head back, we have a tendency to hit behind the ball. So we got to make sure we lean that shaft forward. The other piece was thinking about getting rid of the high hands. Absolutely not, in my opinion. Um, and again, I addressed that earlier. I'm just going through your some of your comments. The armpit more closed. Nope, don't need to do that, because the thing is that's how we can use to generate some speed. Okay, if we get that too closed in there, we're not going to be able to really generate speed coming down. We're just too tucked in, too rigid. So honestly, this position is amazing. I just don't think you've heard about all these different things and been told how good this actually is. Yeah, it's a lot better than I think you had expected. But there are things that we need to do better to match everything up. Absolutely, right? And I've touched on some of those already, but I will demonstrate and give some drills on others and some of the things I've talked about. I thought I'd just throw in a little comparison here of DJ and Kenneth. And like I said, there's not a lot of people that can have this natural ability to do this with their wrist. It looks great. Um, I mean, they look so similar right here. One's a 12-year-old kid and one's a grown adult with a lot more power, obviously, right? So the fact that he's got this at 12 years old is great, and he's only going to get stronger and bigger, and that'll benefit him as he goes. Okay, and here a quick comparison with him and Rory. First, I haven't touched on this yet, but I'm definitely wanting to get you to widen your feet for sure. We're going to need a much more solid base underneath us for using the ground properly. So I'm looking probably at least 3 inches wider, at least. So it should feel definitely different. What we're going to look at here, Rory on the right. Want you to see squatting into his left side, squat, squat. Now he's pushing up, he's pushing up, he's pushing up, and you'll watch his pant leg right there at his left knee, how it kind of wrinkles. That's when he's at full extension. Okay, let's just compare that to when Kenneth's at full extension. About there, all right? Right, because he's already coming back down, so he's not extending more as he's coming back down. He'd be at full extension somewhere in about here, right? And you can see where Rory's at, right? So he's pressing up through the ground, and what we look at, or what we see typically on average, is players will generally apply the most force into the ground with their left leg when their club is parallel with the ground. So at this stage is when Rory is applying the most pressure over the ground in that leg, right? And Kenneth, he's probably applying the most amount of pressure out of that left leg at about this stage, right? So just way too early. So Rory's still on the going upwards, and you can see his foot spinning a little bit because it's coming off the ground right here. It's starting to come off the ground and spin, right? Whereas his is off the ground and spinning there, right? So just wanted to show you some comparisons on that, just so that you understand. Because you watch Rory's hips, maybe we can see from this angle, they're rotating, they're rotating, they're rotating. And at this stage, I mean, his belt buckle is pretty rotated. And at this stage, it stops rotating because that's when he's fully extended, just like Kenneth. But had so much more time to rotate his hips because he was squatting, pushing up, pushing up, pushing up, pushing up. And at this stage, as he's getting full extension, now his hips stop rotating for a split second. And he does the same thing that Kenneth does, just at a different time. And then they finish his round, right? So I hope that I have given you more information than you would have expected and learnt more than you would have thought. I hope that I have with this. Um, and I will now go on and put together some drills for you to work on. And first things first, that we need a wider stance, and we're probably going to look at just weakening that grip, and then I'm going to teach you how to start using the ground properly. Okay, so overall, some amazing things there, Kenneth, and let's take this to the next level. All right, bud.